Good morning. I'm Jim Canales, president of the Barr Foundation, and it's my pleasure to welcome you. I'm going to ask San and Kathy and Bob to join me up here, as well as our other distinguished guests. So let me just speak personally and say that as a resident of Downtown Crossing and a very happy Sonos customer for many years, it's a special pleasure to be in this Sonos space. And I want to thank Joy Howard and her colleagues for hosting us in a space that so typifies the creativity and the vibrancy that we're here to celebrate this morning. I also want to welcome several distinguished guests, many of them sitting behind me. Our Senate President Stan Rosenberg, our Mayor Marty Walsh. We have President Roger Brown from Berkeley here, multiple artists and performers who were able to be with us, several other mayors from throughout the Commonwealth who could be with us, and then I'll speak to some other colleagues who are here too. I'm delighted to be joined at the podium by Kathy Edwards from the New England Foundation for the Arts and Bob Edwards from Americans for the Arts, as well as my colleague San Wong, who directs the Arts and Creativity program at the Barr Foundation. We are here this morning to kick off a campaign called Arts Means Business. For those of us in the social media world, that's hashtag Arts Means Biz. At the Barr Foundation, we believe that arts and creativity are essential for a vibrant, vital, and engaged community. And we're coming to discover through research and analysis that arts and creativity are also major economic drivers. In an effort to understand just how much this is the case, Barr supported two studies by both NEFA and AFTA to better understand this important sector, its contributions, and its needs. The results of these studies really for the very first time provide a clear picture of the value of the creative economy in this region. That's what we want to highlight today. Here in New England, our arts and culture sectors create jobs, boost tourism, and generate government revenue. There are nearly 310,000 people employed by the creative economy in New England, with nearly half of those employed by cultural institutions, and the rest doing creative work as part of private companies or independent contractors. So what do we mean by the creative economy? It is not just comprised of those who create art or who work in arts institutions, although they're an important part of the story. Today, the creative economy includes people working at desks right here at Sonos, or around the corner at an ad agency. It includes people who are self-employed and those who are entrepreneurs, web designers, jewelers, music teachers, and many others. Because of this research, we now know that collectively, people working in the creative economy in New England earn close to $17 billion a year. We also know that this group is part of New England's economy, is a larger part of New England's economy than we find in other regions of the country. In New England, those who are part of the creative economy comprise nearly as many as those who work in either government or construction in this region. Because arts and culture are such an important part of the regional economy, interwoven into the fabric of a vibrant place to live, we need to nurture, support, and promote this sector in the same way that we would any other part of the business sector. We know that all sectors employ and need creative workers, from technology to higher education to medicine. And there are challenges facing this creative economy. The sector is being disrupted by technology and consumer preferences, and the cost of living in this region is high compared with other parts of the country. That is why today is so important. We see Arts Means Business as an opportunity to bring together leadership of all sectors, public, private, and nonprofit, to commit to nurturing this economy. Each of us has an important role to play in this regard. At Barr, we know that philanthropy has to play a role, and we are committed to remain engaged. But we're also excited about the other leaders represented here today who can speak to their commitment to this vital work. And so it is now my pleasure to turn the podium over to one of those leaders. We have been so very fortunate here in Boston to benefit from the leadership of a mayor who actively and consistently embraces the importance of the arts to this community. Under his leadership, the City of Boston has taken numerous tangible steps to demonstrate Boston's commitment to the arts, and we are all grateful for his leadership. Please welcome Mayor Marty Walsh.
Thank you, Jim. And I want to thank you, Jim, and the Barr Foundation for your great support in this city in so many different ways as well. And I want to give San a shout out too. Thank you, San, for your guidance and friendship. San, along with Joyce Lenahan, helped shape a lot of what we're doing, arts policy, back in 2013 when I was a candidate for mayor. So I'll be forever grateful for them. Thank you. To President Rosenberg, who I'm bringing up in a second, Jim Rooney from the Chamber, thank you. Joy Howard, this space is amazing, thank you. Bob Lynch, Anita Walker, Kathy Edwards, and everyone joining us today. Thank you for being with us today. I also want to give a shout out to John Barrows, our Chief of Economic Development in the City of Boston, and Julie Barrows, the Chief of Arts and Culture in the City of Boston, and Joyce Lenahan, the Chief of Policy. So thank you, the three of you, for being with us. This company, Sonos, who's hosting us today, this is a cutting-edge, thriving company in our city. The fact is, you moved from the East Coast, moved its East Coast headquarters to downtown Crossing to help prove a point, that our Boston's creative economy is attracting companies that are calling Boston their home, which we're excited about. Arts Being Business is about partnering and working together across all industry sectors and advancing our creative economy. We're spreading this message that arts and culture are essential to a strong economy and certainly the future of our city. Two reports from the New England Foundation for the Arts and Americans for the Arts underscore this impact. Boston is at the heart of the New England creative economy. The area we're in today, downtown Boston and the North Station, are home to 93 tech, advertising, media, and information companies. When you think about that, it's incredible. And these numbers are growing. And this report paints a dramatic picture of the creative economy's impact on our city. Our creative economy supports nearly 46,000 jobs. Boston generates more than half of its state tax receipts for arts and culture. Nonprofit arts and culture organizations generate more than $763 million in annual spending, and audiences spend $590 million each year here. The sectors create $52 million in state government revenue. So when you think about what this means for our economy, it's so important that we make an investment and continue to make the investments, not just on a local level, but we need to make sure we continue to make larger investments on a state level, because it does make a big difference. This is all in addition to our incredible arts and culture institutions that call Boston home, the creative nonprofits in our neighborhoods, the amazing talent that we generate in our schools. And it's no wonder why we have companies like General Electric, Reebok, Lego, and so many others that want to be here. Maybe Amazon wants to be here. We'll find out. I'll let you know in a little while. They want to be where creative, educated workforce, where they work and they live is. And certainly Boston is that city. Creative workers are employed everywhere, in higher education, in government, in technology, and more. Companies want innovative thinkers in their workplace. So we need to make sure that we are talking about arts and culture as an essential policy area. It's a major economic driver for Boston. We're making Boston a municipal arts leader. We are committed to supporting and elevating the arts and culture all across our city, not just in the downtown Crossing section, not just in the Avenue for the Arts, not just in the Copley Back Bay, but every neighborhood in the city of Boston. We're helping our residents find jobs in the creative sector through our Office of Workforce Development. As a part of our Imagine Boston 2030 plan, we are working with our community arts to build an arts innovation district in Uppins Corner and enhance our neighborhood pilot. Our goal is to expand access to arts and culture into every neighborhood, every single corner of our city. To do that, we need strong connections and partnerships. We're excited to work with our partners that are here today and the business community in Boston to create an opportunity for potential creative growth. So I want to thank you for being here. Now I have the great honor of introducing, and when I talked about the state making investments, this gentleman knows that the investments need to be made. I've had the chance to work with him as a state representative when he was in the Senate, and I was a representative and we worked on many different issues together. And now as mayor, I'm honored to call him my friend. I'd like to bring up to you the Senate President, Stan Rosenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning. What a fantastic day this is as we gather to really reflect on some really remarkable work. It's been a lot of years since we've had updated, focused effort to come up with data to use in our discussions and our debate and our policy development. And if you think about what goes on at City Hall and at the State House and should go on in Congress, public policy is really driven by two things, data and anecdote. And we need good stories, but we also need very reliable data so that when we talk with individual policymakers who are elected to represent their districts, we can talk to them about the specific value and the specific import of the policy that we're trying to develop to their own district, because all politics is local, as Tip O'Neill taught us, and therefore we need to shape the conversation to make it as local as possible, both with the data and with the anecdotes. And before I go any further, I want to take just a moment to ask you to join me to thank, joining us here from Washington, D.C., a native son from Stoughton, Bob Lynch, who is now the president of Americans for the Arts. And what he did, what he has done at the national level has been just phenomenal. I think we could fairly describe him as the country's leading advocacy voice for the arts. He's taken on every major every major opponent of the arts in Congress and in Washington. Please, let's welcome Bob Lynch to Massachusetts. Welcome home, Bob. And Bob and I have been friends for years. He actually worked for me at one time at UMass. And then, like all good bosses, you hope those who follow you will embarrass you with how good they are and the job they do compared to what you did. And Bob Lynch, as director of the Arts Extension Service, which I founded, put me to shame and put that organization on the national map. And so I thank you, Bob, for everything you've done here in Massachusetts and nationally to lead the development of arts policy and trying to shape public opinion around the importance of this. So this study, thank you, Barr Foundation, for engaging. Thank you, AFTR, for engaging. Thank you, Mass Cultural Council. Thank you to Mass Creative. Thank you, Jonathan, to you and your organization. Everyone who had a hand in seeing the need for this and putting their shoulder to the wheel so that we could have updated data for Massachusetts and New England and see where we fit within New England and around the country with updated data is extremely important. Massachusetts is the innovation state, and I think if anyone looks at the history and track record of arts and cultural development in Massachusetts, they cannot help but to think that Massachusetts is really the leading state and innovative state when it comes to the arts. And we had one of the very first cultural councils, and at one time, toward the end of Michael Dukakis's reign as governor, we had the highest per capita spending in the country from state budget for the arts. We are working desperately to try to get back to that point where we are competitive with our like states, especially urban industrial states, and we should not give up on that, and we should keep moving. But we are innovative in many ways. We're still the only state in the country that conceived of creating an arts lottery, and although the arts lottery didn't succeed, that set the stage for creating the Massachusetts Lottery, which is the most successful lottery in the country, and it created an arts council in every single community, a state endorsed arts council in every community in the state. It's the only state in the country that still, at this time, 25 years later, still has that policy. And those volunteers working in their communities are helping to develop appreciation for arts and the work in arts education and the work of artists in their communities, and bringing all kinds of cultural opportunity to their community that otherwise would not be there. And we still have the biggest and most successful cultural facilities program in the country. And then and it's time for renewal for that program, and we're still discussing how far we think we should go for the next period of time, but we definitely need to extend that program. And we also We're not the first state in the country to do cultural districts, but we are moving very aggressively, and in the handful of years since that was established, we have named quite a few cultural districts, and our challenge now is to breathe the next, so breathe real life into those districts so that it's not just a banner and a name, but there's something really significant behind that. And if you want to see what's possible with that, you just have to look at Mass MoCA and North Adams as just one example. And you can find that in many communities across the Commonwealth. So we are an innovative state when it comes to education, when it comes to the arts, and it's no mystery because it goes back to our very founding. In a now famous letter between Mr. Adams and his wife Abigail, he says, "I must study war and politics so that my sons can study engineering and math and science, so that their children could study music and dance and poetry and art." Smart man. He realized that first you have to secure the borders, and people have to feel secure. Next, you have to build an economy in which everyone can have a piece of the pie and can thrive and support themselves and their families and their communities. But a community isn't complete, and a self-governing people does not have a fully operational society until you take the next step and you do what Maslow would say, self-actualize. The arts, feeding the souls of the people through the arts, having them experience life together through the arts in all ways, whether participating as a performer or sitting in an audience or taking it up as an avocation to learn an instrument or to paint or whatever, to bring something different to your life. But it also is critical because communication and creativity are part of the foundation of a self-governing people. You have to be able to listen to each other, to understand each other, to work together to find solutions to complex problems, and you have to be creative in doing that. And the skills that people learn and experience by participating in the arts is fundamental to the success, not only of our society, but also of our government and our society, but also of our economy. So this report, or these reports, whichever it is, are going to help us all as we try to advocate in our communities and our state, in the region, and nationally, so that the United States of America, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and our own communities can fulfill the vision that Mr. Adams had of the role that arts and culture can play in the development of our society. Thank you to all who had a hand in pulling this together, and we look forward to working with this data to advance and continue to be the innovative state that we have always been when it comes to arts and culture. Thank you.
Thank you, Senate President Rosenberg. Let me invite Joy Howard, Chief Marketing Officer of Sonos, to say a few words.
Hi, welcome to Sonos. It's a real pleasure to have you here. And it's a thrill to hear about what the city is doing to make this a great place for creative culture. I certainly am incredibly grateful to enjoy the fruits of your labor and good work every day, as do many of the Sonos, as do all Sonos employees who are based in Boston. Before I make a few remarks, I'd just like to know how many of you know what Sonos is? Okay, and then how many of you actually have it at home? That's not too bad. Okay, well, I hope as a result of my work, everyone will have their hands up someday. That's indeed my job. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Sonos, so I still have some work to do. But for those of you who don't have it and know a little bit about what it is, we stream any music on earth to any room of your home wirelessly, easily, so that you can enjoy it. We place a very high emphasis on sound quality. We think it should be easy to get music playing in your home, and it should also really sound great, because great sound pulls you in to really engage more deeply with the music that you actually care about. So that's what we do. We have 1,400 employees around the world. We were founded in, and we're in many millions of homes, not just those of you here. We were founded in Santa Barbara by some UC Santa Barbara grads who, a few years into starting the company, decided that they had to hire a very specific software engineer who refused to leave Boston. As a result, we opened a second headquarters here, originally in Cambridge, and then we just moved it to Downtown Crossing. But we really created a second headquarters solely to recruit and retain this particular software engineer. Now, Boston has always been a refuge for progressive-minded people, John Adams being one, of course, but also the software engineer, who we think of as one of our founders, is a guy named Andrew Schulert, who was a Southern refugee like me. He left Nashville when he was 16 to go and study at MIT, and of course later became the software engineer that we had to have, which is why we have a second headquarters here. So that's why we have a headquarters in Santa Barbara, one in Boston. We also have offices in Shanghai, Beijing, Hilversum, which is right outside of Amsterdam. And we have two massive trends that are shaping our business, both of which are also rooted in some respects in Boston. So the first massive trend which is shaping our business is the takeoff of music streaming. Many of you have probably heard of Spotify. If you use Spotify and you've ever had the pleasure of experiencing their music discovery engine, right? So Spotify will suggest new songs that you might like. And that, as a result of that, none of us ever have to become lame and out of touch with great music, because Spotify, through the power of its algorithms, can recommend great music to you. Now, when you get a music recommendation from Spotify, whether it's through Discover Weekly or Release Radar, or the playlist just keeps going after you've chosen a song, that discovery engine is powered by a company that was acquired in Boston called the Echo Nest. Have you guys heard of the Echo Nest, any of you? So that's a machine learning startup based in Boston, which Spotify acquired, and it's really been powering Spotify's growth, and of course, we depend on that growth in many ways to grow our own business as well. So the second big trend that's really shaping our business is the takeoff of something that we call the askable internet, which is this idea that navigating the web will soon not just be about swiping and seeing, but actually about asking and hearing. So when you hear about voice assistants like OK Google or Alexa, that's actually the very beginning of a completely new way of engaging with the web, where your voice is actually powering your discovery of information on the web. And in a world where data science and machine learning are powering that kind of innovation around the input, right? Your input, your search. We think the output will be more important than ever, which is great sound. So that's, again, a very important reason why we're here in Boston. Data science and machine learning are at the heart of how people will be consuming information, how they're consuming media. And media is how you encounter ideas, stories, songs, and art that ultimately we hope will transform your life. So I said earlier that Boston has always been a refuge for progressive-minded people. I mentioned Andy, the founder in Boston. My own time in Boston, actually the first time I came here was to play in a band that I was in the 90s at the Middle East. And so I would not be, I couldn't make a remark about Boston without acknowledging its incredible music scene. So certainly in the 90s, the Middle East was really a locus for great music. Many bands came through then and still come through and played there. I certainly was a great fan of the Pixies, were a great Boston band. Also a big fan of the Magnetic Fields. And if you walk around our offices here, you'll see that all of the conference rooms, the large ones are named after historic Boston music venues, the middle-sized ones are named after historic Boston bands, and the smallest rooms are named after historic Boston musicians. And we have quite a few rooms in this office, and we have many more names that we want to use, so hopefully we'll get to expand, and so we can name, we can honor more Boston bands and venues in the future. So I originally came here as a musician. I came back eventually to lead marketing for Converse All-Star, which is another brand that has really been powered by the creative community. And now I'm here working for Sonos, whose mission is to fill every home with music. You can tell from my accent that I'm not native to Boston, but I love it no less than those of you who are native. I want to just say a few things about why I love Boston, because I think it's something that draws many people here. First of all, I love Boston because I'm an avid cyclist, and I'm a huge fan of the work that the Boston City has done to make Boston a better environment for cyclists. Since the Cycling Safety Report of 2013, there's been an incredible improvement in safety for cyclists in Boston. When it's too icy to bike, I commute on foot. I walk from the South End I used to walk from the South End to take my daughter to school in Back Bay, then through the Garden and through the Common to Downtown Crossing, which is about the best commute I think you could have in the world. I'm really thrilled that for the last year, my greatest fear has not been whether I'm going to get killed on my bike, but whether a shadow would get cast by the Winthrop Towers over the Garden. That's a quality problem, guys, to have. Just trust me. I'm also thrilled that my biggest worry for the last year, in addition to the shadow over the Garden, was whether my daughter would get into one of the 3 amazing public charter schools that are within a few T-stops of our home. What an incredible thing to be able to worry about. And how great is it that this morning she was able to take the T to one of those 3 schools. So really thrilling for me and a great reason to be in Boston. You know, there was a time when from the harbor of Boston, evidently, you could see Spectacle Island burning. Do you guys know about this? And evidently, you could not only see it burning, but you could see it burning for 10 years, Spectacle Island burned, I once heard. To think that that's what Boston used to be like, and that someday, actually, on a day like today when it's this hot, we could actually be able to swim in the Charles River. That's an incredible vision of a city in which anyone would want to live, and I'm so happy to be here. So I'm just sharing this litany of Boston's charms, why I love it so much, because these are the kinds of things upon which the creative economy thrives. The creative economy thrives on fresh air, sunshine, good food, good neighbors, great schools. It thrives on diversity, a welcoming and inclusive place to live and neighborhood. Creative people want a place where they can be their most creative and their most free, and Boston is giving us that inspiration, and it's giving us that kind of place to live. So we're incredibly grateful for that. It's wonderful to hear about all the things that the city is doing to continue to make this a great place for the creative arts. We are thrilled to be here at the intersection of a vibrant music community and technology community. We're making the most of that. We want to continue to help you do so as well. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Joy, and thank you again for having us. And finally, I'd like to introduce Jim Rooney, President of the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce.
Well, thank you, Jim, and good morning, everyone. First, it's great to have this opportunity to join Boston Mayor Marty Walsh and Senate President Stan Rosenberg at this event. I've known these 2 gentlemen for a very long time, and I know of Mayor Walsh's and the Senate President's unwavering commitment not only to supporting arts and culture in Boston and throughout Massachusetts, but for helping us to grow this part of our economy, and more importantly, for making arts and culture more accessible to all of our residents. And thank you to Mass Creative, the Barr Foundation, AFTA, the Berkeley Performers, and for all of your important work on this topic and for your contributions this morning. I don't think the mayor will mind me sharing that in our neighborhood there's a coffee shop called the Sugar Bowl that we stop by from time to time, and on weekends we get to enjoy some Berkeley students that are performing there. So if there's a run on the Sugar Bowl next weekend, I'll know why. I'm pleased to be here representing the broader business community at this important event, releasing this report. From our perspective, art makes a city. Around the world, Boston is known for its international knowledge-based economy, our unbeatable talent, our revolutionary history, and our innovative spirit. And add to that our arts and culture and the incredibly vibrant and diverse creative community. That's the piece that makes us whole. Make no mistake about it. There's a formula that's at work here. Big companies, GE, Reebok, Red Hat, even Amazon, want to go to vibrant cities with talent. And talent wants to be in a city that embraces arts and culture. Some of you know that in my prior role from before the Chamber, I was running the Convention Center Authority and welcoming hundreds of thousands of people from across the globe to Boston each year. And while they were here to convene and exchange knowledge about breakthroughs in science and new advances in technology, it was especially rewarding for me when these visitors would take time to visit one of our community arts program galleries, where we had some big walls to fill at that big convention center over in South Boston, and local neighborhood arts groups who were able to fill them. Or our guests would stand outside and watch our innovative Art on the Marquee program, which showcased truly remarkable ideas of digital artists and students studying that subject across the state. And when we brought the Lawn on D to life, we featured emerging local artists and internationally renowned artists outside for everyone to enjoy. Our embracing of the arts at our convention facilities became part of our Boston brand throughout the globe. And as our city has grown, even just in the last 5 years, it's been a joy to see more and more of this accessible art popping up, like art on the water in the Fort Point Channel, or the beautification of the Rose Kennedy Greenway, to create really fun art exhibits through what the mayor is doing in bringing City Hall to life. Boston's art scene activates our spaces. It activates conversations, it inspires more innovation, more collaboration, and that's the place that talented people want to live in, work in, build a career in, and raise a family in. But as this important report tells us, our arts community's importance is much more than just about the enjoyment of the arts. The creative sector employs more than 300,000 people in New England, with cultural institutions providing nearly 150,000 creative economy jobs in Massachusetts alone, generating more than $2.2 billion in economic activity. These contributions must be recognized as vital to the strength of our economy. As a leader in the business community, it gives me great pride to see so many of my corporate members stepping up to support our cultural institutions and our arts sector. We know that the business community plays a critical role in the support and advocacy of the creative economy. As business leaders, we know that a healthy, supported, and growing arts sector is critical to our talent retention and attraction strategy. When we showcase our culture and all we have to offer, and we bring that creative culture to more people and reach more communities, we are saying to the world that this city is full of fun, creativity, and life. Thank you for letting me be a part of this celebration.
Thank you, Jim. And as I hope today's lineup demonstrates, we see this as an issue that requires the engagement of all sectors. Again, private sector, public sector, not-for-profit sector, certainly the philanthropic sector. And we hope that today serves as the beginning to mobilize greater activity from across all of those sectors to realize not only the importance of the arts to creating the kind of vibrant communities that we all aspire to, but also to acknowledge that continuing to fuel the creative economy is going to be vital to creating the Massachusetts and the New England that we seek. So with that, we thank you for being here. We thank you for your role in driving this work and wish you a happy Monday morning. Thank you very much.